Alright guys, we're going to start up. So welcome to Marine Mondays on Wednesday. We had to reschedule, but I'm happy to see all you guys here. And those of you guys who join later, watch us a little later, you could answer the questions at home with your friends and family. And if you have any questions after, just write them in and I can still see them. So today we're going to be talking about the Long Island Sound water cycle and watershed. So again, the Long Island Sound, outside of the Marine Education Center here, because we're in Mamaroneck, for those of you guys that are new. And I didn't even introduce myself, for those of you guys that are new, I'm Kyle. I am the biologist here at the Marine Education Center. And each week we talk about different subjects that relate to the Long Island Sound. So at home, when I ask a question, you could write them in, the answers, or you could just answer at home again with your friends and family. So who could tell me out there what kind of water the Long Island Sound is? We've been doing this for a couple of months, so if you're new, don't worry about it. We'll learn as you go. I'll keep doing this each week. So the Long Island Sound is brackish water. Brackish water is just a big word for salt and fresh water mixed. So our saltwater source is the Atlantic Ocean. The ocean on this side of the coast is the Atlantic Ocean. And then here in the harbor, in Mamaroneck Harbor, it's the Mamaroneck River is our freshwater source. So that mixes together, and if you could see here in the Marine Education Center, we have a bunch of tanks. This is the touch tank, so these are smaller fish, but you can't really see, but there's about 30 species in here. Here comes the baby blackfish. There's a toadfish back there. So all these animals are very unique, and so is the Long Island Sound. Because it is brackish water, it holds a lot of different species, and a lot of these species don't handle all salt water very well or all fresh water very well. So the Long Island Sound is very unique that way. There's a lot of different fish that live here, mammals, birds that come through and hang out. And soon here at the Marine Center we'll be doing bird walks, because the wintering birds of the Long Island Sound are some of my favorite. There's a lot of birds that come through, migratory birds, that come through and hang out for the winter. So check out my website for when that starts, hopefully by the end of December. And it will be socially distanced, so we'll be going out in little pods, but it will still be a lot of fun and you get to get some fresh air. So today we're talking about that watershed and water cycle of the Long Island Sound, because it's very important. And for those of you guys that were here last week, I talked about why it's so important, because we talked about the food chain last week. So the food chain is very important. Everything in the marine ecosystem is connected by this food chain, or food web. So the food web is a bunch of food chains put together. So like we have our shark, the shark eats the seal eats the smaller fish, those smaller fish eat even smaller fish, and then these smaller fish eat the tiny, tiny animals. And who out there can tell me what those tiny, tiny animals are that are at the bottom of the food chain or food web? So plankton, the bottom is the phytoplankton, and then we have the zooplankton. So everything in the marine ecosystem is connected that way. So the water cycle and watershed here at the Long Island Sound is very important. And the one reason I'm talking about that today, and the main subject I'm basing that around, is marine debris. So just to show you guys, I was going to do it on the beach today, but it is very cold and I couldn't handle it. So yesterday I had a couple volunteers come out and do a cleanup, and you guys are always welcome to come. Yesterday's not my normal cleanup, they just wanted to do one, and they got about 12 pounds of trash. And I'm going to hold this up. So this is just one of the bags. It was 2 girls from the high school, very good volunteers of mine. But usually we do cleanups on Friday at 3:30. Anyone's welcome. You go out in your own pod. This year we don't do big groups, and you get to help clean up. So all this trash here, and you're probably wondering why it's connected to the water cycle or watershed here. So the watershed of the Long Island Sound goes all the way up to Canada, and over 5 states have the watershed in it, and over 8 million people live around the Long Island Sound ecosystem, watershed. So the Long Island Sound isn't just right here that you see the water out front. It's like the Marine Center, for those of you guys that see the Marine Center. The watershed is all the rivers, the streams that are connected to this Long Island Sound. That's what makes a watershed a watershed. So the water cycle is important because I'm not going to get too deep into it, but you guys are more welcome to come when I start programs up again, and we will get more in depth about these different subjects of the Long Island Sound. But the main reason I'm talking about the water cycle today is because of this marine debris problem. And a big question this year, there's 2 big questions, and a big reason why I wanted to talk about it. Is there less trash because of this virus? And the answer is no. There's actually a lot more, because we're getting a lot of that PPE, which is our masks and the gloves. So we have to be careful on where we put our trash or how we dispose of it. Because if you walk along the street, the drains that you see on the side of the street, they all come down the river here, or a river bayou, or stream, and come into the Long Island Sound, and then they go out even further into the ocean. So a lot of you guys have heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So that garbage comes from all over because of the currents. So the water cycle is very important, because even the chemicals, like those fertilizers that you put on your lawn, and they're going down into the water cycle because they're going through the soil and they're coming down into the river here and then coming out. So that brings me to my second biggest question, and I've gotten a lot, especially in the last week or so, is what's going on with all the dead fish? There's a lot of dead fish for the last couple of weeks, and those are Atlantic menhaden, and an easier name to call them is bunker. So you're going to see a lot of bunker. It's a little late in the season, but a big reason there are die-offs, especially of bunker, is low oxygen. So bunkers swim, and for those of you guys that walk along the harbor, they swim in huge groups. And you'll see them flopping about, especially when there's a certain bird called the cormorant that hangs around. You'll see them trying to dive for them, but bluefish like them. The bass will chase them. So you'll see big groups of them, and when they go into an area with low oxygen, they can't handle it very well, so they start dying. And low oxygen, especially in places like this, because there's so many people, again, on that watershed, there's over 8 million people, a lot of people are making their grasses green by using that fertilizer, and that fertilizer, again, comes down here. And what lives underneath the water? What are some of the plants called that you see on the beach? And one of them that we've talked about is called sea lettuce. So those are seaweeds, but there's also that phytoplankton. So there's a lot of plants that live in the Long Island Sound. And if there's fertilizer in the water, what do you think it does to those plants? Let's see. Again, you could answer at home with your friends or family. So if there's fertilizer that comes down into the river here and then down into the sound, it makes those plants grow really big. So that causes a low oxygen level, because those plants are taking up all the oxygen. So then the fish don't have any. So that is a big reason for the fish die-offs that you're seeing. And that, again, is a big question. And if anybody wants more information on it, because I'm only doing little bits and pieces of information here, you could always ask me. So that's, again, why the water cycle and how important it is for you guys to know about the water cycle. It's so important because you don't realize, a lot of people don't realize, all ages, how what you're doing affects that water cycle. So again, this marine debris is one of the big problems, and this goes down through the water cycle. And then you have that fertilizer that you can't really see. This is that floatables that you can see, but you have the little things that you can't see that you don't realize are affecting the rivers, the streams, the the harbor here, the Long Island Sound, the Atlantic Ocean. So all the fertilizer comes down here, but then you have other things like your oil. Sometimes cars leak oil, right? Or boats, that's going in. You have all types of things that affect the water cycle. So we just have to be mindful, and I like to tell everybody at home to be mindful of what you're doing every day, and one thing can change a lot. So what's one thing you think at home, for those of you guys watching or watching later, what's one thing you could do at home to help with keeping the water cycle clean and healthy, and the water down here clean and healthy? What's one thing you could do at home? An easy one. I think everybody knows. So a big thing that I find in my cleanups, and again, a lot of this marine debris is accidental. A lot of it, when somebody tosses something in the street, again, goes down those drains, and that's just the floatables. Goes down the drains into the rivers. So one of the big things I find are plastic water bottles. I found about 116 a couple of months ago in one spot. So this is a big thing that you could do. Reusable bottles, right? So these floatables cause a lot of problems, but it's that one use. So what we want to do at home is reduce the amount of one-time use products that we use, like those water bottles, those plastic water bottles. So these ones you can use over and over. That's what makes them not one-time use. So this is a big thing you can help with the water down here, or just making sure you put your trash away correctly. It's been very windy out lately. You guys have probably noticed, hence me not being on the beach today, showing you guys the trash that has accumulated the last couple of days. But it's been very windy, so a lot of people's garbage is falling over, and I see it all on the streets, all in the rivers, on the side of the riverbeds. So just be mindful when it's windy to maybe take your garbage in until the morning, or just watch and make sure it's not spilling over. And you want to use a lot of reusable stuff. So we know the 3 R's. We have reduce, reuse, recycle. So those are the big 3. But my biggest one is reduce, like I just said. So you want to reduce and help that water cycle. So the water cycle, again, the big problem is those liquids, those oils, those other fertilizers that are going down into the water cycle and coming down here. So that's a big thing we could watch as well. So if anybody has any questions, I'm hopefully starting programs again soon, but we will see. You just keep an eye out on my website. But right now we are closing them down for a little while to wait for this spike to be over. But I'm here every Monday. We just had to change it to Marine Wednesdays this week. And if anybody has any questions, please reach out. I've been getting a lot of questions lately, especially on those dead fish. Not as many as past years and a little later in the season. But again, that's they usually have their big die-offs because of that low oxygen, because of those chemicals that are coming down into the water cycle. So here's my toadfish. It's feeding day. So watch us every Monday, and as of right now, I am still open Monday through Friday, 9 until 4, but that may change today. The programs are suspended. But again, you could watch us virtually with the Westchester Children's Museum, like you are now, every Monday. And then the Marine Education Center virtual is Thursdays at 10:30, starting tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll be doing a tour, so please join in. And I look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you for joining. And again, my name is Kyle. I am the biologist here at the Marine Education Center for the Village of Mamaroneck. So come down, do a cleanup, help us clean up. You can start doing the bird walks with us, because again, the Long Island Sound is a big stopover for a lot of cool wintering birds, like bubbleheads, which are my favorite. All right, and hopefully I will see you guys soon. Have a great Wednesday. Bye.